Tessa from Mama's Geeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. Hi, Krysten. Thank you for taking the time today.
Hi, Tessa. Great to see you again.
So good to see you. I love this series. I watched it like back to back to back. I just couldn't stop. I thought it was so much fun.
Oh, yeah. I'm so happy to hear that.
I mean, I love twists and turns, and like when something happens and you go, wait, what? I didn't even see that coming. I love that. So I want to know what drew you to want to be a part of this series.
I was so excited about all of the creative elements of the show, you know, a badass female monster hunter from a cult, getting to do that world building and make those visual choices. And then also, you know, the modern world and our teens there, it's set in a small town like where I'm from. And I loved all of the issues that the characters are dealing with, wanting to get out, but not knowing what that means. And then the fun monsters and the cool like rock and roll vibe I got to put in and create these amazing characters.
Yeah, well, it's so great. And so you directed an episode of Jessica Jones, but this was like your first since then. So can you talk about the difference between like being behind the camera and being in front of the camera?
Yeah, so for me, it's all like the creative process isn't hugely different. I sort of approach everything as a like sort of macro, big picture kind of style. You know, when you're directing, you have much more creative freedom in all departments. You get to choose locations, you get to, you know, build costumes for all of the characters from the ground up and work and collaborate with them, all of the department heads. Every decision is run by you, down to like the color of somebody's belt, or, you know, how big the leech is going to be. Is it going to look like this or is it going to look like that? And this one, there was just so much fun, creative fun to be had, because we have blood and fights and stunts and monsters and you know, sexy character time and all of that. So this was just creatively just like a piece of candy for me.
Well, it's so great. I really enjoy it. And I'm curious if there's any like horror series or movies that you took inspiration from when coming up with stuff.
Yeah, so I kind of like when I work on a project, I tend to like just focus on that. And if there's a couple of movies or shows, I'll throw them on in the background when I'm working, or I'll, you know, pull references from. I think for me, like reference wise, I would put Scream on, or The Craft, or The Lost Boys, My So-Called Life, and even Requiem for a Dream, because I think the cinematography on that is beyond. So a lot of like my lookbook, and even a little bit of The Handmaid's Tale for this, because of the cult and wanting to do something different that we haven't seen. So those were some of the touchstones that I had. A little Winter's Bone, Jennifer Lawrence in Winter's Bone. There's a lot of influences there on the main character. And mostly the main character being dressed like how I dressed in high school, meets like Alicia Silverstone in the Aerosmith videos, meets, you know, Claire Danes in My So-Called Life. It's kind of like all my favorite shit, like thrown in.
I love it. I love it. Well, you did talk a little bit about there being like a kick-ass girl at the front of the series, which I love as a mom of girls. That's like always exciting. They're a little too young to watch this one just yet.
Oh, yeah.
A little too young. But you've played yourself a kick-ass girl a few times. So is that important for you when taking on a project?
Absolutely. It's something we just can't get enough of, and something that I've done and have experience doing. And, you know, there's always the question that happens in the industry, like, oh, is this character going to be likable? And I am someone who has a history of playing characters who people worried were going to be unlikable. So I was like, I'm the girl. If you want to, I know how to do this. I know how to make this character lovable, and you'll get on board with her in minute 3 and you're off to the races. So that's something that I really kind of get into. I feel like that's kind of my area. And I love strong female badass characters like this. I love flipping gender stereotypes on their head. I love like having a stripped down lead. It's not about like her hair and makeup. She had no hair and makeup on. And so that all is really important to me.
That's awesome. Well, again, like I said, I super appreciate it as a mom of girls and as a kick-ass girl myself too.
Yes.
So, but so did you guys film this during the pandemic? And if so, were there any challenges you had to deal with?
Yes, we were so fortunate that we filmed during the pandemic and nobody got sick. We were able to keep everybody very safe. We shot in the Pacific Northwest outside of Portland, Oregon, which is the most beautiful place I've ever been in real life. Just the the nature and the size of the trees and the moss and the waterfalls everywhere, it was like, it added such a beautiful production value. And also I was craving that kind of scenery and nature in my life. So this just had like such a special place for me. We had major COVID protocols. Luckily, a lot of our shooting happened outside. So we could keep people safe, and obviously the transmission is much lower outside, but it was, masks and eyewear and testing 3 times a week. And it was very very regimented. So I'm so happy that we were able to do it and that we figured out a way to keep everybody safe so that we can keep doing what we love.
Yeah, I know. I'm so thankful that we're still getting new content to take in. So real quick, last thing, if you could describe this series in 3 words, what would it be?
3 words. 3 words.
I know.
I'll say monsters. Coming of age, kind of 1 word. And I'm just gonna do a hyphenate, female badass monster hunter. That's what it is. Yes.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Krysten, so much. I can't wait for everyone to see this show. It's so much fun. And I appreciate you taking the time today.
Amazing. Great to see you again.
Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.